Hello, spooky friends. I'm John, and welcome to our exciting third episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest. For now, I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Megan and Brooke. How you doing, Brooke?
I'm doing pretty good. It's the day after Christmas, so just, relaxing and vibing.
Did you have a spooky Christmas?
Not super spooky, unfortunately. Although we're going to be talking about the Beast of Bray Road in this
Yeah.
episode, and we were in the area where the
Oh,
Beast of Bray Road
nice.
has been seen. So, you know,
Nice.
I was keeping an eye out, but I didn't see anything. Maybe next time.
Megan, did you have a spooky Christmas?
Well, you know what was spooky was that huge snowstorm that just came through, and I'm so glad it's over. It was ridiculous.
So true.
But that's
Yeah.
Wisconsin for you.
That is
Yeah.
Wisconsin for you. You know, one of the things I was thinking, eventually, when we have a little more episodes under our belt, we have to do something about Santa Claus and everything because it is kind of creepy that this guy shows up in your house and he just drops presents and he can like go up the
That's
chimney
true.
and he
That's-
can kind of like kiss your mom and dad or I don't know what's going on.
So
It's
true.
weird, right? Is it
Yeah.
only
Sounds
me? It's
normal to
kinda
me.
Weird.
And he like eats your food and
Yeah, eat your
Yeah.
cookies.
yeah.
And then he knows exactly what you want. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of creepy.
It is
He knows
creepy.
when you're sleeping.
That is super weird, by the way, right? You wake up and see this fat guy with a beard like hovering over you while you're
Yeah.
sleeping, breathing hard.
Honestly.
And he only
That's-
comes once
I'm
a year.
sorry.
Just breaking into
Yeah.
houses
It only
once a
does it
year. But that's
once a year.
okay.
That's okay. So we have a great scary topic. We have two topics tonight. The first one is the mysterious Beast of Bray Road, the humanoid wolf-like creature allegedly witnessed in or near the rural community of Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And I want to say, and Brooke, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're Miss Cryptoid, if that's okay, if I can say that.
That's fine. Yeah.
So I think let's rank these just really, really quick. So I think Bigfoot's number one as cryptids go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say probably Mothman or Loch Ness. What would you say for number two?
I feel like Loch Ness for like,
Yeah, international.
Like what people maybe know the best, but Mothman I think has been kind of like a newer player that's rising.
Yeah. So stay with me. I think Beast of Bray Road is up there. Maybe not 3, but I think he's in the top 10. What, Megan, Brooke, what do you think? Top 10 for crypto?
I think so. I think I never really realized how how popular he was, but I have a little section where I'll talk about like kind of the Beast of Bray Road and popular culture. But really interesting. And I think like just like these wolfmen in general too, like there's so many different ones, but the Beast of Bray Road seems to be kind of like one of the biggest, one of the most well-known like dogmen stories.
Yes.
Which is really cool that it's from Wisconsin.
Yes, absolutely. So that's our first topic. So love that. Second one, we will be covering some of the scariest stories from the Pfister Hotel, one of the most iconic places to stay in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is a great old hotel. Megan will be covering this. One thing I want to add about this, just really quickly, is, and I think I told this to you guys off air or off episode, I should say. There are grown men, baseball players, football players, who will not stay in that hotel. They refuse to stay in that hotel.
That's so interesting.
It cracks me up. These guys like 6'5", 250, big burly guys, and they're like, hell no. Get me out of that place.
I have some good stories to tell about that, so you'll have to stay tuned.
Nice. So, but first, before we get to these awesome stories from Brooke and Megan, we're going to start with the story I promised you at the end of last episode, and that is the toaster from hell. Okay, I love this. There's gonna be a picture on the website of this, and I'm just
It's
gonna do this
awesome.
really quickly so we get to our topics. Okay, imagine your grandma. Okay, so put that in your minds, people. Okay, Megan and Brooke, imagine your grandma, and she has a toaster, and she says to you one day, "Hey, Brooke, Megan, my toaster is from hell, and Satan lives in it."
Oh,
Honestly,
Right?
it kind of checks out for my grandma, I think.
Yeah, you're probably gonna be like, "Grandma, okay, I love
you
you,
feeling
Grandma.
all right?
You feeling all right?" Okay, so guess what? This is from Florida.
Oh,
Okay, that
Florida.
makes sense.
From Florida. Boca
We're pooping
Raton,
on Florida.
Florida, which is the haven for older people, which no, I'm not going to Boca Raton, Florida. I don't care how old I am. So what happened was, and this is totally serious, you can watch this on YouTube, but I put some pictures up on our website because, and I know, Brooke, you said you laughed your ass off when you
I
saw
did.
some of the pictures.
I did.
So this woman claimed the devil lives in her toaster. And what she did was she brought a reporter out there from the local station, and he just basically witnessed the woman. Her name is June. This is, like I said, she's your grandma. She's the quintessential grandma. Just imagine that. And she was just talking, and she brought out the toaster. Nothing special about the toaster. It's from any toaster from, I don't know, Walmart, right? And she says that when she put the toast in, that the devil started to talk to her and just said her name or something like that. And so the reporter asked her, "What kind of voice does the devil have?" And like I said, this is on TV. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. It's from the 80s again. And she's this nice old lady, and she's like, "I don't know, it kind of sounds like this one actor that I've never heard of." I'm like, "Okay, whatever, lady."
Okay.
And then, so you will see a picture of where it says on the toast, "Satan lives" is scratched into the toast. This idly old lady holding a piece of satanic toast. I laughed so hard I fell off my chair when I saw that picture. So
wow.
Yeah, right. So here's the punchline to all of this. So the reporter asked, "Well, June, why do you keep this toaster if it's the toaster from hell?" And her answer was, "Well, when all said and done, it makes good toast."
She was honest, John.
Fair enough.
Nothing more to it.
It's hard.
It makes good toast, right?
Hard to find a good toaster,
Yeah, it's hard to find a good toaster. Am I right?
Yeah.
It burns your toast. Your toast is too light. Whatever.
Maybe it's satanic.
It's to you in tongues. Yeah.
Yeah, it tastes good.
So anyway, there's another picture on there where the toaster, it looks like it's on fire, and June is like recoiling back, and everybody's like, "Holy, shit, this thing is gonna," and she's just like, "Okay, now it works." Kind of. What? I love
Definitely
it.
not a fire hazard.
Yeah. So we've had the bunk bed from hell, which made an entire family leave their house, which we do not know where that bunk bed is. And that was on our last episode. So check that out. Very funny. But more serious because they were hearing voices and seeing scary old women and all this stuff. But here, it's a toaster from hell. But you know what? It makes damn good toast. So
it's practical.
Pun intended.
Yeah. So my contribution to this podcast is I love paranormal and everything. I love to find some funny things. So
yeah,
again, we will bring that to you on future podcasts from time to time to make you have a good laugh. So
we love that.
I love it.
Toaster from hell. All right, so let's get right into it. I'm excited to hear this because just really quickly, I haven't had any personal stories or had any friends know personal stories, but I've heard things on different podcasts and have read about this and kind of seen some documentaries about it. But the funny thing is, about the Beast of Bray Road, which will, like I said, we'll get to a sec here with Brooke. People generally, it's like Bigfoot. Nobody really has massive evidence to say it does exist, and we're going to talk about this at the end. I would like to do that if that's okay, Brooke, to kind of give it a yes
absolutely.
or no, or what we want to do. But it's just like Bigfoot and Mothman. Yeah, people have seen it, but there's not really any proof either way. But anyway, I'm love to hear this, Brooke. If you want to take it away and tell us a little bit more about the Beast of Bray Road.
Yes, sounds good. Yeah, I think exactly what you said, John. It's interesting. It's there's not a ton of evidence, but there is a lot of people who say that they've seen this creature over the course of like 20, 30, 40 years. So we're going to get into it a little bit. I want to shout out the sources that I use like usual. First of all, The Beast of Bray Road, Tailing Wisconsin's Werewolf is a book that was put out by Linda Godfrey, and she'll actually come into play quite a bit as I go through this. But I do own the book. I have not read it cover to cover, but I did use a few like excerpts from it. Then there's also a documentary called The Bray Road Beast that was put out in 2018. Actually, John, you're the one who told me about it. I watched that today. Directed by Seth Breedlove. He's actually a cryptozoologist, which I thought was kind of fun. But yeah, you can watch that on Amazon Prime. That was kind of interesting. There was also, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Lore podcast, but I really like it. It's produced. It's Aaron Mahnke is the guy who like produces and is the guy who like does the whole podcast. And he also had an episode on the Beast of Bray Road, so I listened to that. There is a Monster Quest episode from the History Channel titled Legend of the American Werewolf, which largely covers the Beast of Bray Road. And then also, just because I like to give a shout out to like a lesser known one, there's a YouTube channel that I found. They only have like 650 subscribers. It's called Flyover Culture. And it's this guy, he talks about a lot of different aspects of like Midwestern culture, but he had a whole episode on the Beast of Bray Road. It was just like a 7-minute video. And it was really fun. It was a very cute video. They're all very well produced, and I feel like he deserves more subscribers. So I wanted to give a little shout out to Flyover Culture.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very fun. So anyway, a little bit of background. So this story primarily occurs in a town called Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Elkhorn is in Walworth County and has a population of a little over 10,000 people. Which I think is fun because the town that I grew up in is actually only about 20 minutes away and also is a town of a little over 10,000 people. So it's very, very close to home. So it's a very picturesque and unassuming town. There's a lot of farmers there and a lot of merchants, very similar to what you would kind of expect of a Wisconsin town.
Sure.
It's a little bit southwest of Milwaukee, so probably about like a 40-minute drive from Milwaukee. And it's close to Lake Geneva, which is, if you live in Wisconsin, Lake Geneva is a very popular vacation spot and also very picturesque and beautiful. And then Bray Road itself is actually a 4-mile long road. It's very similar. I mean, it's, like any road in the Midwest, that's not like a Highway 94, like it's just farmland, and at the time most of the land was privately owned by a couple different farmers. They were all 5th generation farmers who all kind of knew each other. And it's really not traveled by many people outside of the people who actually live along the stretch of road. So it's not a highway. It's just a, average Wisconsin farmland road. So the Beast himself, he is also known as the Walworth County Werewolf. Or the Beast of Bray Road.
Very fitting.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I like when the sounds come as a surprise.
Yeah, I
gotta keep us on our feet.
You did. Yeah. So the majority of the sightings that we'll talk about occurred in the late 1980s and early 1990s. So really like 1989 to 1992 were the majority of the sightings. And pretty much all of the sightings they're very similar to each other, which kind of adds a bit to, I guess, like the believability of everything. But pretty much everyone describes the Beast of Bray Road as having the head of a wolf or German Shepherd, but standing on its two hind legs. But sometimes they'll see it like running on all fours, but it'll stand up at some point. That's the main thing, is like they'll see it standing up on its hind legs. And usually when it's standing, it's between 5 and 7 feet. Some say that it has the body of a bear, but with a wolf's head. Others say it's more like the body of a man with like fur covering it, and very muscular. Many say the beast has glowing eyes, but some of them say red, some of them say yellow. And usually it's described as having black or brown hair with grayish streaks in it. And then many describe a foul odor that accompanied their sightings, which kind of makes sense. Some of them describe the odor as skunky or as similar to rotten meat or like a wet dog, which, very pleasant.
Seems
something
fitting.
that is, it is fitting for sure, especially the wet dog. That makes sense. But
they don't make a wet dog cologne,
No, so that's true.
They could, John. That could be your big break.
Yeah.
What am I done?
Something that I thought was interesting too is that the beast is never described as being a killer. So there are a lot of werewolf stories of the past, like the Middle Ages, such as the Beast of Jovedan, really describe these werewolf creatures as being very aggressive towards humans and having like killed or maimed or injured a human in some way. But the Beast of Bray Road never actually injured a person. So he tends to run when he sees a human. And in most cases, and it appears to be more of a scavenger than a hunter. So usually people will see the Beast of Bray Road like eating roadkill or like, scavenging in some sort of way. Every once in a while, it appears to chase cars or people, but it always kind of breaks away and runs off before it can actually catch them, even though it seems like it could catch them if it wanted to, but it doesn't.
So you know what's funny about that? Just really quickly here is Bigfoot, Mothman, some of the cryptids and everything like that, not necessarily kill people or kill humans. They seem to want to be like your dog, right? When you come home and your dog comes up to you and it's all, giving you licks on the face and it's excited to see you, or they kind of chase you around a little bit or whatever. But normally your dog will not bite you. They're just really, curious. And I find that really interesting, being that these cryptids could really hurt you if they wanted to, right? They're dominant. And like, where animals smell fear and stuff like that. And, again, just going back to a dog, it's kind of similar to this in a sense. If you've been around someone's house and that dog jumps out at you and starts barking and growling at you and you're kind of scared, you know what I mean? And that kind of fear. And then, you kind of feel like, oh, this dog's going to rip my throat out if I don't, calm down or whatever. It's really interesting that it's never happened, that this thing is packed.
It's interesting too, because Linda Godfrey, the woman who actually wrote that book I mentioned, she interviewed tons of people, and she said that a lot of them actually told her that they almost felt like it was trying to like communicate via like body language or like, I don't know, telepathically or something, that it was like, hey, I could kill you if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. Like, it was almost like a very threatening energy, but they like kind of knew that they were not in any actual danger. And I think it's interesting because like, if you believe in cryptids, it almost seems as though they like know they're not supposed to be seen, or they know that like they're not meant for like our human world, and so they don't like want to actually interact with us, but they we just kind of get little clips of them every once in a while, and it's really fascinating. And I'm kind of like someone of the belief that like all cryptids are like kind of the same thing, or like the same phenomena that's happening, and it's just kind of interesting to like really think about it. But
absolutely.
But yeah, all in all, the Beast of Bray Road, it seems like he's a nice guy. He's not here to hurt us.
His name is Terry. His name is Terry. He likes to hang out at the local Starbucks.
Yeah,
hey, what's up, Terry?
He's just a nice dude. He's not here to kill anybody. He's
hanging out.
Yeah,
give Terry a break, will you? Come on, people.
Honestly, it's not so bad. But anyway, I'll get into a couple of the specific stories. So there were really two stories, one from Lori and Drezzy and one from Doris Gibson that came out around the same time, which is when Linda actually published her original story in the newspaper about the Beast of Bray Road. And those two stories, when they were published, they kind of like launched everything else. So Lori and Drezzy was the first one. So her account happened in the fall of 1989. So Lori Andrezzi was a 24-year-old single mother at the time, and she was a bar manager driving home from work. And I believe it was storming, or maybe actually no, it was storming in Doris Gibson's. I don't think it was storming in Lori Andrezzi's account, but she saw something in the ditch along Bray Road as she was driving. And she thought that it was either a person hunched over or some kind of animal. So she kind of slowed down and turned on her high beams. And what she saw was a creature which looked like a wolf, but she was very confused because it didn't look like it looked like it had the face of a wolf, but it was kneeled over like a man, and it was actually eating out of its hands. And when she looked closer, it looked like it was like roadkill, and it was taking like huge chunks of this roadkill out of its own hands. And it had like elbows, almost like a human as well. So she freaked out. She like sped off as fast as she could when she kind of realized what she was actually seeing was real. And she called John Fredrickson, who was the animal control officer for Walworth County during that time, to report what she saw. And he's kind of interesting. He was featured in that documentary that I watched quite a bit. And so many people would call him like the animal control officer.
Poor
rather
guy.
than calling so he had like a whole file that was called werewolf that like all of the like accounts he would put into the same file. Yeah, it was really funny. But something interesting during the documentary, John actually said that during his conversation with Lori, while she was describing the creature, he was having like books on his bookshelf, like started flying off the shelf for no reason, which I thought was really interesting because it kind of gave a different like supernatural vibe to it, which I hadn't really thought about. But like that's what he said was happening. So, and then later on, it was mentioned that Lori, when she was interviewed later on, said that she believed that the beast was some kind of demonic entity because she felt like so like grossed out and creeped out when she saw it. So that's just like the vibe that she got, I guess. So that was interesting. The next story, and this is the first one that I think Linda actually went out and interviewed this girl. And that this is kind of what spurred her to write her newspaper article in I think it was the Walworth Times, but we'll get there. So Doris Gibson this was actually on Halloween night in 1991. She was a senior in high school, and she was driving down Bray Road during a storm, and she heard and felt a thump. And she got kind of freaked out because she thought maybe she had hit an animal, or maybe like it messed her car up in some way. So she put the car in park and she wanted to check to see what was going on. So she got out to investigate. She checked like under her bumper. She checked everything. She didn't see any signs that she had run anything over. She even looked to see if there was a pothole. There wasn't. So she was kind of like, okay, I don't really know what that was. She was about to get back in her car when she looked up, and in the middle of the road, she saw a 6 to 7 foot tall figure, and it looked like an upright wolf staring right at her. Wow. And it actually, they kind of just like made eye contact for a little bit, and then it started moving towards her. And she said she could like feel and hear like the thump of its feet hitting the ground. So yeah, she freaked out as anyone would, and she like dove back into her car and started driving as fast as she could. And she said that the wolf actually started following her, and it lunged at her car and grabbed onto her trunk.
Oh my God.
Nice. Yeah, and eventually she started going so fast that it fell off. But she said when she got back, she actually saw like 3 claw marks on either side of her trunk.
That's crazy.
Like, wolf claws. Yeah, and Linda Godfrey actually says that she saw the claw marks herself too when she interviewed Doris. So, so that's very interesting as well. And then the third story is Tom Brigda. It's Brigda or Brickda. He was in the documentary, and it didn't have his name spelling, so I'm not 100% positive. But Tom Brigda had an experience in July of 1992. So he was coming home from a wedding reception. He had 2 cars sorry. So he had two friends in the car with him. Oh my gosh, my dog is like trying to get in my lap. Okay, here we go. He had two friends in the car with him, and they were driving along. They didn't specifically say whether it was Bray Road or another road, so it might have been a different road, but they all kind of smelled a foul odor, and they described it as smelling like a skunk, but stronger. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it was really foggy, and Tom noticed a hand sticking out from the side of the road, like through the fog. And so he looked over at it. Oh, yeah, nice. I know. Wouldn't that be creepy? But he looked over at it, and one of his friends saw that he looked over. So his friend kind of like followed his eye line and looked over as well. And his friend, through his, because he was in the passenger seat, saw this, again, a huge gray and black upright wolf that was reaching out towards their car. And the beast actually, according to Tom, scratched their car. And he actually showed in the documentary like one long scratch down the side of his car too. So he had, you know, kind of evidence as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, so there are tons of accounts like this. There are many other accounts, both anonymous accounts and also named people. I think Linda estimated that it was in like the hundreds of people that reported their accounts between 1989 and 1992. And all of the stories were very similar. Interestingly, some of the people claim to have seen the beast decades earlier, but they never came forward for fear of ridicule. So once the story kind of came out and Doris and Lori came forward with their stories, other people kind of felt more comfortable talking about their own stories, even if they were from like years before. So yeah. So because there were a couple like named accounts from people who had experiences like in 1982 and one was 1986. So really all throughout the 80s, but people didn't want to come forward because they were afraid that they would like lose their job, and they were afraid that their kids would get like made fun of at school. So, you know, a lot of the reasons that people don't talk about these things. But
yeah, all of the stories that you shared, I don't really see why they would lie about it. Plus you have that oddly, you know, interesting evidence that was on their car. So
yeah. And that seems to be a very common, it seems very common that people would say that like the Beast of Bray Road was like chasing after their car, or like in some way alarmed by the car, or tried to like scratch it, or you know, different stuff like that. So it's kind of, again, it's very consistent. And like you said, Megan, like people in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, I mean, I'm assuming it's similar to my hometown of Sussex in that it's in the same area of Wisconsin. It's the same size town. Like, I know that people in Sussex, where I grew up, would not just make up stories like this, because when you're in that small of a town, in this more like blue collar farm country, you don't want to be like the person who saw the werewolf on the side of the road. Like no one wants to be that person. So for people to actually start coming forward and talking about these stories, it's not, you know, they're not going to just make it up. Maybe one or two people just to like, you know, be part of the trend, but certainly not like hundreds of people.
Right.
And the other thing too, it's just, that's not a benefit for you to be like, hey, like we've talked about before, and I'll kind of bring it up once we're done with Beast of Bray Road, is you want to monetize the cryptid, right?
Right.
like the Hodag. Good old Gene. What did good old Gene do? He, you know, like, hey, bring all these people out here and give me some money.
Exactly.
And they're not doing that, at least not that I know of.
No,
they're, you know.
Yeah, that's something I do have a little bit in here, but they're really like, even to this day, it's not anything like Rhinelander is with the Hodag. Like there isn't this like culture that like rallies around the Beast of Bray Road. They don't really want it to be like this tourist spectacle, because they already had a lot going for them as a town. Like they're not far from Milwaukee. They're really close to Lake Geneva. They already had kind of like a decent amount of tourism, just because they were like this cute little town that you can kind of, you know, go to, that's between Lake Geneva and Milwaukee. So there really was no reason for them to like, you know, want to get a whole group of people traveling there just to see some, you know, werewolf that they quote unquote made up. So it's really different. And there's not like, you know, stores where you can go buy Beast of Bray Road plushies like there is with the Hodag. They don't have like they don't have a statue of them outside their Chamber of Commerce or anything. So
exactly.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting. One thing too, when it comes to the other stories, a lot of people actually claim that they saw the beast in broad daylight, saying that it was way too large to be a wolf, and it would sometimes be on four legs, but would occasionally stop and stand up on two legs. Um, it's interesting. Like, it wasn't just happening at night where people, might be like kind of on edge driving through
Right.
like the woods. It was like people were also seeing it in the middle of the day. So
That is odd.
yeah. A little bit more about Linda. So Linda was the one who published her book about the Beast of Bray Road. She actually published it in 2003, but she was the one who actually was the original news reporter who broke the story about the Beast of Bray Road in the Walworth Week. And I don't think that that publication exists anymore. But at the time, the story was called Tracking Down the Beast of Bray Road, and it was published in December of 1991 with an illustration of the beast. I'll put that on the website because the little illustration is kind of fun. But once that was published, this triggered like so many more reports. It had so many more people were comfortable coming forward with their stories because it was kind of more in the mainstream. Linda did say that many regretted giving their stories because of ridicule they experienced afterwards, and that many later sightings, like in 1991 and 92, were anonymous because of this. So the earlier ones were more like named people, but eventually people wanted to still tell their stories, but they wanted to remain anonymous just because they didn't want the publicity of it all. And
Sure.
Linda actually said that she initially laughed at the idea of the beast when she first heard the first couple stories, but has since interviewed countless people who have had experiences with the beast. She describes people as reliving their worst nightmares as they recount their stories to her. They turn pale, they start sweating, and some of them, she says, even burst into tears. And she says that she has a really hard time joking about the time period now because of all the different stories that she's heard and what she's seen. Something else that's interesting is that many of the witnesses actually agreed to take polygraph tests later on when a documentary was being produced. Yeah, and I don't think this was the 2018 documentary that's on Amazon Prime. This was a different one because it was produced in 2008. But yeah, a ton of the different witnesses all took polygraph tests and all of them passed. So also, again, just kind of like, even if you don't like believe that this creature exists, I think you kind of have to believe that the people who are telling these stories believed what they saw, whether or not you believe that it was like a werewolf or just like maybe they misidentified an actual wolf or something like that. Whatever it was, they truly believed what they were seeing.
Yeah, and scared. They were scared.
Yeah, definitely scared. So with that, I thought it would be interesting to talk about a couple of the different theories, just because there's some that are just really out there, and I thought were kind of fun.
Love it.
Yeah, so the first one, this is really interesting. So the first one is more of like a biblical theory, I guess, and this is the actual earliest account that people can find of the Beast of Bray Road. So this actually happened in Jefferson County, not Walworth, which Jefferson County is directly east of Walworth County. So it's right next to it. But this was in 1936, but the story was not broken until 1991 after Linda had published her article. Yeah. So the story was told by the son of the person who actually had the experience. So the son was a newspaper editor. That's why he reached out to Linda. He thought she would be the best person to tell about it. But his father was actually the night watchman for the St. Coletta Institute, which was in Jefferson County. And his father's job was basically to walk the grounds every night to make sure there wasn't any, and he was basically like a security guard, essentially. And they actually, on the premises, had Native American burial grounds that they had preserved. And one night, he was doing his normal rounds. He had his flashlight out, and he saw something on top of one of the burial mounds. And when he shined his flashlight on it, it was a large creature who had a canine head, and he was like digging furiously into the mound. And as soon as he like shined his flashlight on it, the creature kind of looked at him, and then it like took off into the night. And the guy was kind of like, yeah, he was kind of like, holy crap, what the heck? And, moved on with his life. But then the very next night, he saw the same thing. It was the same creature on that same mound. And this time when the creature turned to him, the man said that he told his son this, that the creature made like human-like utterances, which he thought sounded like the word Gadara, which apparently in the biblical meaning, Jesus apparently exorcised a man in Gadara during what is known as the exorcism of Gerasene demoniac. So apparently this man from Gadara was possessed, and Jesus had exorcised him. So now, with like, I don't know much about religion at all, but apparently like the word Gadara is like associated with demons. So he had thought that like this creature that he saw was some kind of possessed person that was like infested with demons of some sort. Which is, a pretty dark idea of what it might have come from.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting too to know that people were seeing this creature as far back as 1936. I read somewhere else that when this man had this experience, he told his wife about it, and his wife was like, "You cannot tell anyone about this. People are going to think you're crazy."
Yeah.
And so he didn't even tell his son about it until like 5 years after his wife had died. And then he told his son, like, "Don't tell anyone about this. I don't want to be like that crazy guy." But then eventually, once everything else happened, his son decided to tell his story. So it's kind of interesting.
If I saw that twice on the job, I would quit on the spot. You would not see me again on my shift.
I'm out. I'm not going to put in my 2 weeks. See ya.
Right? Yeah. Just, immediate resignation.
So with religion and everything like that, one of the things that you find out from, because unfortunately I went from Bible school 8th grade all the way through high school, so yeah.
Yes.
And one of the things, but I got really more into the occult, which drove my minister nuts, because I'd be like, "Hey, what if Satan does this? And what if..." You just look at me like, "Oh, just go away.
We don't talk about that here."
Yeah, let's just go away, John. Okay. But one of the things is similar to the werewolf stories is a person is cursed by some type of blasphemy. So maybe with this story, what's interesting is it's typically you may go, "I don't want God in my life," or anything like that. And you might put that out there, and then God says, "Oh, okay, bam, now you're a werewolf."
Right.
So it's kind of like it's a weird thing, especially to do with like exorcisms and stuff, where when Jesus would exorcise demons and everything, it was usually because Satan was like testing them, like would be like, "Hey, this is the fun place, Jesus, come on over here." And Jesus would be like, "Hey, man, I like where I am. I'm going to get you out of there and you can go back to hell," and stuff. So it's kind of a really interesting thing that people bring that up, because that's typically not a United States. And here in the States, it's typically in international, like countries like Czechoslovakia, Transylvania, Soviet Union, or whatever they're called now. It's typically countries like that who believe in curses and hexes, and you know what I'm saying? So it's more in there where you can hex somebody and make them a werewolf or your slave or a zombie. So that's interesting. That's an interesting thing about that. So yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for giving your own input, because like I said, I have no frame of reference when it comes to like, the whole Christian side of it or whatever. But kind of in the same vein, another theory that was kind of brought up by John Fredrickson during the documentary that I watched was this idea of cult activity. So again, John Fredrickson was the animal control officer for Walworth County in the late 80s and early 90s. And he, along with all the reports that he was getting about this werewolf creature, he was also receiving a ton of phone calls about satanic cult activity in the area during the time, especially because there were a lot of like animal mutilation. So he was getting calls about that, of people saying that they found like mutilated bodies of animals, and it was like really common. But it was never fully investigated. Like he mentioned that the cops like bulldozed the entire area where they were finding these mutilated animals before they even really investigated it. Sure. And he actually said that Walworth County at the time was confirmed as one of the 4 counties in Wisconsin that had the highest amount of cult activity, because it's a very wooded area. So I guess people would, go in there and just do their weird cult stuff. But John thinks that like perhaps if you believe in that kind of thing, like maybe
Yeah.
the cultists were attempting to conjure some sort of demon and that they were successful, and that's what the Beast of Bray Road is.
So that's really interesting you bring that up, because we have to cover down the road like the satanic panic in the 80s and stuff.
Yeah.
It's super interesting how like 21 people went to jail without any proof or evidence they're Satanists, and they just put them in jail. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's again, I don't know much about Satanism either, but from what I understand, it's not like all Satanists are like these crazy
No,
animal killing people. They're just
absolutely.
they're not like trying to conjure demons. They're just
Yeah,
like,
and one thing we'll cover that I would like to cover, I'll pitch to both of you, is called the Bridgewater Triangle. And that is, I believe, in Ohio, and that's where they saw these Satanists like made this like basically satanic triangle, and you go in this area and it's really creepy swamps and all this stuff.
oh,
And
interesting.
everybody blamed Satanists for it because they put all these symbols up. What they didn't realize later was they were on an Indian burial ground, and they were basically in an Indian graveyard.
Right.
The Native American population had marked different symbols, and everybody thought it was Satanist symbols. No, it was Native American symbols, and they just found it out probably like 5 years ago. And I'm
Interesting.
just like, every time I hear cult and Satanists, I always chuckle, because I'm like, that's the easy to go to, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's such a like trigger word. Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as you trigger that, and that's what I think brings paranormal down, in my opinion, is people think like we're doing this because we love it and we find it interesting. But there are people out there go, oh, you must be Satanist because that's what Satanists do. They like paranormal. We're like, no.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You just like the paranormal. And I think, you should listen to us and understand why that Satanism and the paranormal have a very loose affiliation, if at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just two completely different things. But I think people just, I don't know. People just get so freaked out,
It's
and like you
easy
said,
to, right?
yeah,
It's easy to attach to.
it is. Yeah, it's like, oh, the big scary monster that no one understands of Satanism. Let's blame everything on that. uh, but yeah, so that was definitely another theory going around at the time. Definitely not one that I believe, but it is a theory.
Yeah.
Another theory too is like there's a lot of Native American stories of different creatures. As we know, a lot of Native American tribes have lived or still live in Wisconsin. So there's a lot of interesting stories about the area going very, very far back. But many people think that it was like some kind of skinwalker. Again, I don't know a ton about these creatures, but other ones that they mention are the Shunka Warakin, which is basically a giant wolf creature, or creatures from Inuit stories such as the Amarok or the Wahila. But these creatures don't really have like humanoid characteristics like the Beast of Bray Road is said to. So, but it's just kind of interesting to think like, again, maybe the Beast of Bray Road has been around for a very long time, and the stories that the Native Americans were telling way back when are kind of the same as what still exists today. The next theory is that the Beast of Bray Road is something that just exists in the natural world. So Linda Godfrey says that she actually leans toward this story or this theory, that this isn't a paranormal creature, but a creature that eats, breathes, and sleeps like any other animal, perhaps a large wolf with some form of mutation. So Linda actually coined the phrase Beast of Bray Road by writing her article, because she didn't believe that it was a werewolf. What everyone else was kind of saying werewolf, but she didn't want to use that phrase in her article because she says that she didn't want to insinuate that there is like one beast in one location. She mentions how the reports of the Michigan Dogman are actually very similar to the reports of the Beast of Bray Road, and that they could be connected in some way. And there are various other like Dogman and Wolfman stories from not only the Midwest, but the entire world, really. And that maybe this is something that actually does exist. And similarly, there's this man in the documentary named Ricky Sanchez who actually experienced what he described as a pack of these creatures on his land. And he truly believes that they were actual animals like wolves, but just with the ability to stand on their hind legs. And he said that he had seen like 3 or 4 of them, that his neighbor saw them too, and that, again, they were like scavengers. They didn't really mean them any harm, but he believes that they were just animals. And then the last theory, of course, is that this is just a big wolf. So this actually was a quote from that Monster Quest episode from the History Channel in 2010. But a wolf biologist named Peggy Callahan said in the episode, people could definitely misidentify a wolf jumping up on its hind legs and think that it was some kind of werewolf. So she believes that a combination of paranoia, superstition, and misidentification has created the tale of the beast and other similar stories around the world. So, of course, those are just 5 theories, but what do you guys think? What do you guys think the Beast of Bray Road is?
Well, I can go first.
Yeah, go, Megan.
I am interested in your theory that it's not just one specific creature, it's many different creatures, because I feel like, at least to me, that kind of explains how this creature could be seen in the 30s, also in the 90s. So it'd be kind of odd for it to live through all of those
That
decades and not be harmed or die. So I definitely could see it being multiple creatures instead of just one singular entity. What about you, John?
Yeah. Absolutely. So one of these things, I don't know if they brought it up, is a wolf called a dire wolf. And this sucker is huge. It's absolutely huge. It's about the size, I would say, like a small horse. I mean, it's big. And they were, so if you watch Game of Thrones, I know I'm throwing this way out there right now, and I'm sorry if I confuse everyone listening to us, but Game of Thrones, the Stark clan, their sigil is the dire wolf, and they show a dire wolf in there, and that thing is like big. And then I started doing some research. I'm like, hey, I wonder if that really existed. And yes, it did. And they were all, of course, killed off because we're idiots and we like to kill things that are really big. But like anything, it still survived different parts of the country. Recently, people have started seeing dire wolves again, and like I said, they're about the size of a small horse. So imagine if you were just driving along, and then all of a sudden this wolf that's almost as big as your car.
Oh God!
Right?
What the heck is
it's
that?
Gonna freak you out. So
yeah, for sure.
That was a theory that was been brought because one of the things in Wisconsin, we did hunt wolves to near extinction. Now the gray wolves are coming back, and there's also been certain reports of people saying they're seeing like white wolves and different breeds of wolves. And it's typical wolves, and not like I'm the expert, but from just what I've read when we were doing Beast of Bray Road, I kind of wanted to see if maybe there's some similarities, and there is, in the sense of wolves typically will not, if you're like out with your husband and you're walking down a trail and you see a pack of wolves, I'm not saying don't be scared, because I'd be scared. However, if you back away slowly and you just stay calm, the wolves will leave you alone. Now, is that always true? I don't know, because animals are aggressive, right? Whether it's your dog or your cat or a big bad wolf out there, you don't know what's going to happen. And a dire wolf could leave a huge scratch on your car if it thought it was being threatened for whatever reason. Just like when you see dogs chasing cars and stuff like that, it's innate, right? It's that ability to want to chase something for whatever reason. So that's my theory is it's some type of, I don't know, maybe different type of wolf that people.
Yeah. I think
no one's gonna hunt this.
That honestly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that makes sense too, because like you said, there aren't at the time there were definitely not that many wild wolves in Wisconsin. There still aren't today. And so I feel like people who aren't familiar with wolves don't really know or like understand how big they actually get. Like they're bigger than like a husky or like a German shepherd. They're huge. They're like 2, 3, 4 times the weight of those types of dogs. So if it was just a wolf, people might have been like, holy crap, there's no way that's a wolf, because they've never actually seen one and they don't understand how big it is. So I definitely think that would definitely make sense. Obviously, like a wolf's not going to walk around on two legs, but
No, that's
yeah, but it
that's
is
a little
interesting.
strange. Yeah,
Mhm.
but like my dog Minnie, she'll
Minnie.
when I come up to her, she'll get on two legs and she'll kind
Mhm.
of jump on me and stuff.
That's
So
true.
yeah, kind of.
That is
I
true.
kind of get where they're coming at. Maybe it's trying to be friendly, which
Maybe.
Scraping
knows,
up your
right?
car.
That is true. Very, very true.
So yeah, so what else do you have on the Beast of Bray Road?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about, what happened since then, since the 90s. So reports eventually calmed down by the mid 90s. But after Linda's book came out in 2003, kind of a new group of reports started popping up. Most of these reports occurred while people were driving and at night specifically. So there weren't any people who were saying that they were seeing this beast in broad daylight like they had in the past. But there are definitely new people saying that they had seen it. Something that I thought was really interesting is this was in the documentary. So in 2013, a new farmer to the Bray Road area, to the Elkhorn area, his name is Lee Hampel. He had just kind of moved to the area and he started having strange occurrences on his farm. Like, for instance, there would be like roadkill on the side of the road and he would notice that it was like moved or like mutilated overnight. And it would be like, a dead deer that had been like dragged somewhere. And he was like, that's, not something that just like your average scavenger could like pick up and move. So he started kind of documenting all of these different things that were occurring, and he set up video cameras on his property, and he documented a lot of weird things. But the most interesting thing to me was he had a doe that was roadkill, and it was like 60 to 70 pounds. And he actually like took the dead doe and moved it to by one of his video cameras that he had set up.
Mm-hmm.
And one day he found that the doe was like completely gone. And this was on his property, so it wasn't like it was picked up by, someone who like moves roadkill or anything. So he noticed it was gone one morning and he went back and checked the footage. And he actually, during the time when something must have happened to this doe, there was like this strange black mist that like took up the entire screen for like a couple seconds. And then it was gone. And then the doe also was gone. So it wasn't like, he didn't see like a wolf or anything like that. It wasn't like an animal. It was like this weird black mist. And you can actually see it in the documentary. I thought that was so interesting. And we can kind of come back to that in a second, but I'll finish up these couple other last couple stories. But in July of 22, a man in Lyons, Wisconsin, which is a little bit east of Elkhorn, works as a delivery driver. And he said that he saw a similar beast twice within a 2-week span, and both times in broad daylight while he was making deliveries. So this was just 2 years ago. So this was very recent. And then in 2018, this one is interesting. A man named Danny Morgan, who is actually a resident of Menominee Falls, which is where my brother lives. He was driving north of Town Line Road in Elkhorn, and he claims to have seen the beast around 10 p.m. coming out of a cornfield and towards the road. And he claims that he took a picture of it. And I actually added it to our outline. If you scroll all the way down past the newspaper article, it's kind of funny. Like, it's, to me, I really love it.
Like, whoa, it's real. It's almost like too real. I don't know. Like,
it's
that's high def.
Yeah, it's a little. Don't know about it.
Yeah.
So that was we'll put it on the website because it is pretty funny and pretty interesting, But
you be the judge.
So that was you be the judge. Yes, exactly. But that was Danny Morgan's picture that he supposedly took. And then, like I was mentioning, Elkhorn doesn't really embrace the Beast of Bray Road the way that Rhinelander embraces the Hodag. However, the bar where Lori and Drezzy used to work does have a menu item called the Silver Bullet Special, which is kind of fun.
That's funny.
Yeah, and a local baker makes werewolf-shaped cookies. So there is a couple little nods.
A little bit,
yeah, a little bit of it. Just it's not like, like Hodag Mania, but or like Moth Mania. Yeah, exactly. But there's a little bit. And And then a couple mentions of just the pop culture of the Beast of Bray Road. So there is a Beast of Bray Road movie that's free on YouTube if you want to watch it. It came out in 2005 and was written directed by Lee Scott. And I actually looked him up, and he is from Milwaukee.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah, which is kind of fun. And he's directed. Yeah, right. Maybe. But he's actually directed quite a few movies, and all of them seem to be kind of like bad, corny horror movies. But one of the movies that he directed was called Dorothy and the Witches of Oz, which starred fairly well-known actors like Christopher Lloyd, Billy Boyd, and Sean Astin. So for my Lord of the Rings fans, yeah, Billy Boyd and Sean Astin. That's 2 of the 4 hobbits. So
yeah,
it's like, that's pretty neat. Yeah.
Nice.
But it's funny because the movie, in the movie it occurs in Wisconsin, but commenters were complaining that all the cars had like California license plates. Wow. So it's not a good movie. It's not a good movie, but it is free. Yeah, it's very low budget.
Come on, Lee.
There was also a nationally televised episode of Inside Edition that featured the Walworth County werewolf, and a lot of other things too. Like the Beast of Bray Road is mentioned quite a bit. So it's kind of fun. It's fun that this very well-known cryptid is from Wisconsin, and it's very interesting. But yeah, we can always come back to it. I think there's so many accounts of the Beast of Bray Road that that I didn't mention because I wanted to keep it a little bit concise. But
sure,
it's very fascinating stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. It's definitely top 10 cryptid in my opinion.
Agreed.
Really interesting. Again, from the reports and everything. So, yeah. So, let's go on to the Pfister Hotel with Megan. We're kind of changing things up here from a cryptid to a spooky hotel.
Can I just say too, to get this joke out of the way? Every time I hear Pfister Hotel in my mind, I'm like, Pfister, I barely know her.
That's a love it. One,
oh my god, it just makes me laugh. But anyway, yes, tell us about the hotel, Megan. I'm so excited.
You got to get one bad joke into the podcast, Brooke.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much, Brooke. That was a super interesting story that you had to tell, and I'm hoping that my stories of the Pfister will be just as interesting for you all. So I'm going to try to keep those scares coming, and we're going to talk about the Pfister Hotel, which is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And if you're ever traveling through, Milwaukee, there's lots of different places that you can stay. But the Pfister Hotel is really, something that's going to stand out among all your different options. And I don't know if you've ever been able to visit the hotel, John or Brooke, but it is gorgeous. I don't know if you've seen photos, but it's like a mansion. It's gigantic. It's elegant, but it's also allegedly very haunted. So we're going to talk about that today. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like the Kool-Aid man. So we love it. So there's some quite spooky stories. Like I'll talk about it a little bit later, but allegedly the entire second floor of the Pfister Hotel is haunted, and people have seen shadow figures. They've heard voices in the hallways, and they've even had really weird things happen in their hotel rooms, like furniture moving by itself, technology, coming on and off. It's crazy. Yeah. But there's also stories that kind of make me laugh. I don't know if you guys will find it as funny as I do, but over the years, there's been, a ton of celebrities and dignitaries that have stayed at the hotel. But for some reason, this hotel specifically is notorious for causing ruckus among Major League Baseball players that stay there.
Right.
Just so baseball players specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the stories, but there are countless stories that MLB players have shared. And like John mentioned earlier, is that some players, they straight up will not even stay in this hotel. There are so many haunted happenings and haunted stories. Like there's this one story, one player even ran out of his hotel room without his pants on. He was so scared.
Oh my gosh.
So it's bad, guys. So I'm going to share that story with you. But getting a little bit ahead of myself. But, I personally think there's a reason why ghosts or a ghost specifically is kind of playing these pranks on MLB players, and I'll share my theory with you later, but you'll
There
have
you
to
go.
stay tuned to find out.
Interesting.
Stay tuned. That's
Yes.
not a teaser, folks.
Yes, stay tuned, folks.
Not a teaser.
Yes. So, before I get into those awesome stories of the ghost or ghosts haunting and taunting MLB players, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the hotel, just so you can kind of envision what this hotel looked like in the late 1800s when it was built. So, the Pfister Hotel was founded in 1893 by a man named Charles Pfister, and then his father, who was a German immigrant named Guido Pfister. And Charles had this grand idea that he was going to create what he would call the People's Palace. So it'd be kind of a place for people to all gather under one roof and socialize and have fun. And it really did turn out to be this luxurious hotel experience that became a go-to spot for many people in Milwaukee. And even to this day, it still is. You'll have to look up photos of this hotel, but to say it's massive is an understatement. It is huge.
It's absolutely huge.
And it's completely gorgeous and elegant on the inside. There's gold trim, there's grand chandeliers, there's ornate artwork. It really is a gorgeous experience inside of there. And throughout its about 130 years of operation, it's hosted tons of people. It's hosted presidents, celebrities, prime ministers. If you're someone who, is popular or a celebrity, you've probably stayed at the Pfister at some point or another if you've stayed in Milwaukee. So, Charles and Guido Pfister, they had this dream that they wanted to create one of the finest hotels ever built. And unfortunately, Guido did pass away before the hotel was finished, but his son really stepped in and made sure that the hotel, came to a close and was constructed the way that they had envisioned. Now, this is something that's interesting. It cost the two men about $1 million to build back in the day, which by today's standards, a $1 million hotel isn't, super out of the ordinary. But I looked up what it would cost today to build, and that same hotel would cost about $33 million to build.
Wow.
So that's
a
quite a chunk of change. So you can kind of envision how gorgeous and luxurious that this hotel was. Something else that was really cool about this hotel was it was built in the late 1800s, and it was actually well known for a lot of different cool things at the time. Like, it was known as one of the first all-electric and completely fireproof hotels in Milwaukee, which is pretty cool. It had 200 guest rooms. It had its own power plant, which is really cool for the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And it also had its own thermostats in each room, which is like completely unheard of for the time. So it was
unheard of.
definitely
that is super
a
cool.
highbrow experience if you're going to stay there. Another cool thing that it has is it has this grand ballroom with 32-foot high ceilings, and it's a gorgeous place. Even to this day, tons of people book it for weddings, balls, social gatherings. It's really a beautiful spot. But this all sounds awesome, beautiful, amazing. But this is also known as one of the most haunted lodgings in Wisconsin, and you'll come to find out why. So I was kind of looking into this hotel, and it's like, where do all these ghost stories happen?
Yeah.
Because there haven't been, any crazy things that have happened, like a murder or, haunted land. But my theory, and the running theory among most people, is that the hotel is actually haunted by Charles Pfister himself. Which is interesting because both staff and guests have claimed that they've seen Mr. Pfister standing on the grand staircase up to the second floor. That's why I kind of said the second floor is allegedly supposed to be the most haunted part of the hotel. Why? I'm not sure.
Interesting.
But is the main ghost or the ghosts of the Pfister actually Charles? Maybe. But it kind of makes sense because he's the most closely related to the hotel, and he's probably sticking around to look over it and make sure that it stays in good repair. So I don't know if you guys would agree, but it kind of makes sense.
I think so.
Be Guido, but
it could be.
Yeah, good old
Yes.
Guido hanging out. Yeah, I think you hear that a lot with residual haunting or intelligent haunting, right? With people who are so close to their home or their
Mm-hmm.
hotel or their business, where they just want to make sure, hey, how's everything going? I just want to look around, and they don't realize, one, sometimes they're dead, or they just don't realize that, hey, we're okay. You can go
Mm-hmm.
Right.
on
Like
to
we can
wherever,
move
right?
on.
And that happens a lot. You hear that a lot in some older hotels, older homes. It's just the ghost just wants to make sure that you're doing right. And okay, I kind of
Right.
get that. So that
Yeah.
that makes total sense to me. Brooke, what do you think?
I think so too, especially because it was like a passion project for
Yeah.
both Guido and Charles. Like, it was like a family thing. It was very important to them. So the idea that they would be like checking in and making sure things are going okay is it's like heartwarming a little bit, and
Yeah.
playing some pranks on some baseball players. But
We'll get
Megan
to
can
that.
get to that.
That's
That's
exactly what I'm about to get into, Brooke and John.
nice.
Is I think it's
Yes.
so funny. Like, oh, this they're looking out for the hotel. They're making sure it's well taken care of. But
Mhm.
what's so funny is that the ghost or the ghosts, whatever, are in a Pfister Hotel, they love scaring the crap out of visiting MLB players specifically, which I just think is so funny. There's actually a long list of players who have heard like weird noises, they've seen lights flickering, their electronics act strangely. And there was even one person who reported that their furniture moved around in their room. And I'm going to tell you
Ooh,
that story. But
nice.
you can
Cool.
actually read all of these stories for yourself on the MLB website, and I'll give you the directions of how to find that after my stories. But I decided to read through them and pick out 4 of my favorite stories to share with you all today.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah,
Woo.
you
I
guys
like it.
can read the rest of them when you have some free time, but they're all really great. All right, so I'm going to talk about 4 different stories. The first one is Michael Young. He's a former Rangers infielder. He actually reported that several years ago, he was lying in his bed at the Pfister after a night game, and he said that his room was locked and he heard these footsteps inside of his room stomping around. And he heard, stories about this hotel, that it was super haunted. So, of course, he was wide awake at this point. And then he heard it again. He heard these footsteps on the floor. So he actually yelled out to this alleged ghost in his room, "Hey, make yourself at home, hang out, have a seat, but don't wake me up, okay?" That's what he said. "Don't wake me up." So after that, he stopped hearing anything for the rest of the night. So he just said, I let him feel welcome. I let him know we were pals, that he could, stay as long as he wanted.
Yeah,
Just
sure. Have a beer.
don't wake me up. So,
Don't
That's
wake me up,
awesome.
man.
you
I have a
know,
big game tomorrow.
right.
Yeah.
Mr. Pfister, he can respect a man that needs to get his beauty rest, of course.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that may be something we can take away from this is if you can reason with a ghost, maybe they'll
Mhm.
let you have
Yeah.
a good
Tell me say
night's
hi, like
sleep.
we always say.
Yeah,
Right.
just find some common ground. Fair.
Just ask nicely, say please.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I have this second story. This is from Bryce Harper. He stayed at the Pfister in 2012, and he told ESPN that he had laid out his shirt and pants on a table at the end of his bed before he went to sleep for the night. And he actually said, "When I woke up in the morning, I swear on everything, the clothes were on the floor, and the table was on the opposite side of the room against the wall." So his furniture
Oh,
had just moved by itself.
Ooh. Yeah.
interesting.
He said, "I
Okay.
was so flustered, I honestly thought that there might be someone in my room. And I had no idea what the hell had just happened. So I looked around and I checked the door to see if the door was locked, and it was locked, which is
Huh.
interesting." So he actually thought, oh, maybe one of my teammates played a prank on me, but no
Sure.
one came forward. And he ended up asking to be moved to a different room because he was so scared.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That would scare the crap out of me.
That scared me too.
Plus, that's a lot of energy to be able to move
Yes.
furniture on your own without waking someone
Mm-hmm.
up. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's interesting. So I have a third story. This is from Carlos Gomez. He says that he's heard voices while staying at the Pfister, with the worst happening when he was in the shower and he heard this static playing on his iPod. So he grabbed the device, but it changed songs all by itself. So he actually raced out of the room into the lobby without even putting pants on. He was so scared. Love that.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
That's good.
And then this very last story I'm going to share today is this was actually the most recent occurrence that's happened. It happened in 2018. And this was from Carlos Martinez. So when the Cardinals were in town, Martinez and Marcel Ozuna both claimed that they had seen ghosts in their own rooms. So they finally decided to stay together for the night in Francisco Pina's room, saying, if the ghost shows up again, we're going to fight it. So they're, they're just going to gang up on this ghost. We're going to punch Mr. Pfister, we'll get it taken care of.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So it's funny. I love all these stories. Again, you can find this on MLB's website. How you can find it is if you go to Google and you type in scary stories from baseball's haunted hotel, you'll find the article. So these were just some of my favorites that I loved, but I actually read that some players who stay at the Pfister will actually sleep with their bats in their beds.
That's so funny. Oh my God.
Just in case, they're super scared, not sure how effective it would be to swing a bat at a ghost, but let me know if you try it and it works. Anyways, so my theory is that this is maybe Charles Pfister and he just wants to look out for the Milwaukee Brewers, because if you rough up the visiting team the night before, maybe they won't play as well for the Milwaukee Brewers home games. So
I totally buy that. Yeah.
So, a little prank never hurt anybody, but I mean, if you're good enough that you can scare away the visiting teams, maybe it's worth it.
That's true.
Yeah, anything for Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, ghost or no ghost, whether it's Mr. Pfister or not Mr. Pfister, the Pfister Hotel definitely is one of those super cool places to visit in Milwaukee, and who doesn't love a good ghost story? So, two quick questions I had for you two. One, would you stay at the Pfister Hotel?
I definitely would. I actually have been there. I didn't stay there. My sister, when she got married in downtown Milwaukee, and her husband stayed at the Pfister, and I think their whole wedding party did as well. And I don't know if they had any haunted experiences, but they said that it was amazing. But I have been to, there's actually a martini bar on the top, 23rd floor of the Pfister. Yeah, it's called Blue something. But it's really cool. It's a very cool bar to go to if you ever get a chance. But I would love to stay there and try to get some paranormal activity. I think it'd be fun. And it's such a cool location and a cool hotel.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, that'd be super fun. I kind of have a story related to that a little bit. I was on a business trip in Nashville, and we were staying at this hotel that's kind of the counterpart of the Pfister Hotel, called the Leeds Hotel. Basically, it's the same thing you just said, Megan. And what was funny was, I said to the clerk or whatever, I said, "Is this haunted?" And he looked at me and goes, "Yes." And I'm like, "Oh, this is so sweet." You
know what? Not even gonna play with you. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, he just told me straight out. He just said, "Yep." And anyway, so this is the thing that totally sucks. So when I was trying to get my room, they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Eckey, we don't have a room. However, we have a sister hotel that is brand new. We'll put you in that." And I was like, argue with the guy, like, "No, I want to stay here."
I
don't know.
So anyway, the next day I went to some of my coworkers who had stayed there, and I said, "Come on, you got to tell me what, any haunting." So two things happened. To one of my coworkers, when he was sleeping, he heard a woman's voice in his ear, and he thought he thought it was my boss, who obviously is the female, and was trying to wake him up. But he was like, "How in the hell did my boss get in the rooms?" Because he said he woke up and he was expecting to see my boss standing there, like, "Hey, you get your ass out of bed. We need to, go to these meetings." Nobody was there.
Oh my
It was the
God, I'd be so
weirdest thing.
scared.
And here's
Interesting.
the thing, it said his name. So his name was
Oh.
Danny.
Oh,
Said
No way.
Danny. Like someone trying to wake you up, like you would wake your husband up, like Danny. And
Oh my
again, that's why
God.
he thought like, oh shit, I overslept. I gotta, and no, he's in the room. So he got a new room.
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, as you would think. Yes.
And then the second quick story was, and this one is not as scary because it could be people just messing with you. So he was, one of my other coworkers said he was sleeping. It's like 3:00 in the morning because he looked at the clock because he wasn't sleeping that well. And there was just pounding on his door, just, like someone trying to get in. And, he's like, okay, God dang it, somebody, this isn't funny. And he opens the door. There's nobody there. So he said he did something smart. So, but again, believe it or not, it's up to you. So what he did, he grabbed a chair because, like I said, he couldn't sleep. So he took a chair and he sat in front of the door and he was going to whip open the door when someone did that again and catch him and just have a little fun with them.
Right.
So he was sitting there and he said, some time passed. And he was kind of nodding off and then bam, 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 bam. And he said he got up right away, opened the door, nobody was there.
Oh,
So he
man. So
goes,
they,
Man, it's like,
Yeah.
how could they run,
Yeah, he said, right. He checked the hall because, and other people, from what I heard when I was at breakfast, were like, they looked like they hadn't slept. They looked really
like,
nervous.
oh, you didn't sleep well either?
Yeah. So,
interesting.
and then I would switch rooms with them, and nobody would switch rooms with me, which was really fun. I'm like, look, I'll go in the haunted hotel. You can have my 5-star whatever hotel room. I got to be here. And everybody's like, no, I'm going to be leaving tomorrow. That's okay. I'm like, dang it. So,
Dang it.
No, I wanted to.
yeah. So I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to do that.
Next time.
Next time. So anyway, that was just 2 quick little stories for you.
That's awesome. Well, maybe if you
different
stay at the
haunted
Pfister, you'll have your chance, John.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right, I'm going to ask you two one more question, then we'll close out for the day. But if you two were ghosts, would you play pranks on people like the possible Mr. Pfister at the Pfister Hotel?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Why not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like the idea of picking like a very specific group of people that you play pranks on, like
Right?
Yeah.
Like just relentless.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like people with a specific profession. I don't know.
Maybe play around with some ghost hunters.
You two would
Yeah.
know it would be me because I'm just gonna come up behind you and go, Megan. And you'd be like, John.
You're like, oh, John, come on.
I'll be over the top, like a
Love it.
cheesy horror movie.
For sure.
I'll go, Brooke. And you'd be like, John, come on, man. You're like, oh, I'm sorry.
John,
I'm
I have an
definitely-
idea for you. You have to pick another kitchen appliance. It can't be the toaster because that's already
Okay.
taken.
Yeah,
But you
okay.
can be like the haunted blender or, the
Yeah.
haunted air fryer, whatever you
Or bread
Haunted air
maker.
fryer.
It's 2022. You can pick, an awesome appliance.
Yeah, the microwave's too easy. I'll pick something that you both least expect it.
Yeah.
There you
And we'll be
go.
making
Like
we'll be
your
just
air
like
fryer will start to woo. Oh, John, come on! I'm trying to make some dinner tonight, man. Come on.
Love it.
I love that idea.
How about you, Megan? What are you gonna do?
I don't know, man. I feel like I would be like kind of like poltergeist activity, like opening up all the
Poltergeist.
cabinets, but like just being like
Damn,
minor
girl, that's scary.
inconveniences.
Yeah.
Like
I think
just
so.
enough to kind of annoy you, but not like scare you out of your
Oh, I
house, like
gotcha, I
the haunted
gotcha.
bunk bed,
Yeah.
there you
minor
go, haunted bunk
inconveniences. Yeah.
I would want to be
Brooke?
like I think I'd be a helpful ghost. Like that like that ghost who was like snow blowing the driveway during the
Oh
last episode.
yeah. Like put all the dishes away, fold the laundry.
Yeah, fold the laundry, so that they're like, what the hell?
You
I like
better
that, Brooke.
possess my house, Brooke.
Sounds good.
That'd be
I think it'd
too
be fun.
So, any final thoughts? Love both of these. I think they're Beast of Bray Road. We might revisit that and talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
Pfister Hotel. That's awesome. like Megan said and Brooke said, they have some really cool things there. If you get a chance, please stay there. And one of the things, once we get more episodes, like I've said before, we're going to hopefully get into YouTube, and then we'll have an email because we would love to hear some experiences for the Pfister Hotel or Beast of Bray Road sent to our email. But we're going to talk about that because we want to make sure we do everything right and get it out there. But right now, we're just, like I said, we're concentrating on our episodes. And I want to give some shout outs just really quick to people in the UK who are listening. I love it.
Yeah.
We're international, Megan and Brooke.
I love that.
We love it.
Also, people listening into, I think, Megan, you said your parents are listening in Oregon. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Also, we have California. I want to do a shout out, Alabama, Michigan. And so we'll have to do the dog man.
Yeah, the
story,
Michigan dog
correct?
man.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we'll
That'd
do
be
dog
awesome.
man then. And then in Wisconsin. One thing I want to say is, again, hit subscribe. We're, again, a small podcast. We don't have a studio. We don't have engineers. We don't have a big budget. So really, we build it upon people listening to us, and we can be found on all the different podcast sites. We just got onto Apple. So please leave a review. Please leave a 5-star review because that really will help us grow our podcast. Brooke or Megan, did you want to add anything just, to our audience who is listening to kind of help us continue to grow?
I think you said it all. I'm excited to see where this goes, especially as we start kind of talking about some stories outside of Wisconsin. We're starting with Wisconsin because it's what we know, what we're familiar with, but I'm excited to talk about, the Michigan dog man, and there's so much weird stuff in Ohio. That's going to be some interesting stories too. So
great stories. Megan?
Yep, I think you covered it, John. There's just so many cool things to share in Wisconsin that, it's worth tuning in and learning about. And like Brooke said, we'll be expanding our topics. But for now, we've got so much to cover, and you'll have to tune in next week to see what we talk about.
Oh, good one. Good one. Love that. Yes. So tune in next week to our episode because we're still discussing what we'd like to do. That's the great thing about our podcast. We like to kind of feel it out and see what's kind of really getting us excited and what we can do, whether it be a cryptid, haunted hotel, haunted toaster, haunted
haunted air fryer,
haunted air fryers. So again, we always like to say, be friendly to your ghost, just like that one baseball player. He really wanted to be friendly. Tell your ghost to say hi, and stay spooky. All right. Thanks, Brooke and Megan, and we will talk to you later.
All right. See you next episode.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Yep. Bye.